All right, man, peace. You know, brothers, one of the concepts that males in Western civilization are constantly being subjected to or inundated with is this notion of a quote-unquote happy wife equaling a happy life, which is just a circuitous way of getting males in America to once again bow down to the feminine principle. And many men in America, Europe, quote-unquote Western society or Western civilization or what have you, have bought into this notion, this false and erroneous belief that there is such a thing as a happy woman. Not only is there not such a thing as a happy woman, I think that the concept, the notion, the idea of happiness has really totally been taken and carried off into another dimension, brought back, repackaged, and re-advertised for people to make them believe that happiness is a state of being as opposed to what it actually is. More of a viral outbreak within a person. When you're happy, sad, angry, those are momentary states of being. What we should be looking for as men is contentment. Not only should you not be concerned with making sure that your woman is so-called happy, it's actually the reverse. It's her job to make sure that she maintains what she believes to be happiness within you, and that creates the concept of quote-unquote happiness within her. All the things in this society have been turned inside out and upside down. Why am I going over this with Steph Curry and Rachel Nichols on the screen? The reason why I'm saying this is because many males today have the spirit of a female within them, or what they call a quote-unquote simp or a beta male per se. I actually was going to call this series Beta Male on the Rampage, but I said to myself, you know what? Let me not go that hard on the brother KD because he's very confused. Strangely enough, he seems to believe that there's such a thing as quote-unquote happiness. True happiness arrives when you understand that there's no such thing as happiness. That means that you stop searching for this elusive state of being, this Shangri-La, this Nirvana, whatever you want to call it, where you're supposed to wake up every day with a smile on your face. Brothers, that world does not exist. And that's the reason why Kevin Durant has recently stated or complained about the quote-unquote system in Golden State, the same system that got him to the NBA Finals 3 years in a row and would have made him a 3-time champion had his body not broken down when his team needed him the most. I'm not blaming him at all, but that's obviously what happened. I do believe that Kevin Durant has issues within himself, understanding what life is about. He's still searching. And many times when people are still searching, the real issue that they're having is that they're turning simplicity into complexity. When we learn to turn complexity into simplicity, that's when things become easy for us. So anyway, this person here, Rachel Nichols, she had an interview with Stephen Curry, which we're going to be delving into a bit. And Stephen Curry basically, in his own way, is going to fire back at Kevin Durant and some of his assertions that he wanted to play more iso ball and the system that the Warriors run is not conducive to certain pivotal moments in the playoffs, which is all fair and good. But I'm not quite sure if there's any system in the history of the NBA that's better than throwing it to a great isolation player when it matters the most. We all know that back in the 1980s, the Showtime Lakers, they loved to run the fast break. But in the half-court set, when they needed a basket, normally they would either go to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for the sky hook, or they might give it to James Worthy. He'd face up on the elbow and try to take his man, draw a foul. Or eventually, as Magic Johnson matured into the role, he started to take the big shots in the half-court. Same thing with Larry Bird on the other coast. In the 1990s, we all know that the Bulls ran a triangle offense, but when they needed buckets, they went to MJ. That's natural. In the 2000s, you had Kobe and Shaq. Even the Spurs in the mid-2000s, they went to Tim Duncan or Manu Ginobili. They had to break some of their sets. Kevin Durant seems to still have a problem understanding the demarcation between a great system and a great player. He's not willing to blend the two. And there's something missing with KD when it comes to what he's willing to admit is the reason, the actual focus for him leaving Golden State. I believe that eventually it's going to come out. So, of course, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
What did you think of the magazine article and the interview he just gave, where he gave some quotes about the Warriors? He said, over time, it felt like, quote, nobody could get a full acceptance of me there.
I think that Kevin Durant has an issue accepting himself.
What did you feel when you read that?
I mean, that's tough. There's so many narratives that go on, especially when you're at the top of the league. And so no matter how, the full transition happens to Brooklyn and him separating himself from the Warriors.
In other words, what Stephen Curry is saying there is KD's trying to make an excuse for why he left a successful enterprise. It's like someone who's in a great marriage, but he just has to have that $2 hole at the end of the street. He gets caught sneaking off with the broad, and all of a sudden he has to make up reasons why he decided to step out on his wife, and they have a great house, beautiful kids, so on and so forth. Just admit that you needed some of that hoe. That's all. That's all KD has to do. That's what Stephen Curry is basically saying, in my view.
That's going to happen, but at the end of the day, I think he knows, what we were about as teammates, what we were about as friends on and off the court. Wish we could play with KD. He's an unbelievable talent, unbelievable person. We accomplished a lot together.
But we're moving forward, and it's time for me to be able to take 25 to 30 shots a game again. I'm going to average 35 points a game, and I'm going to remind you guys who I am.
But, things have changed a little bit.
Well, that was Stephen Curry with Rachel Nichols responding to Kevin Durant's quotes to the Wall Street Journal that he never felt quite accepted by the Warriors.
I don't think Kevin Durant knows how to accept acceptance. It would not surprise me if he and Kyrie Irving eventually fall out as well.
Kevin Durant able to win 2 championships with the Warriors, 2 finals MVPs as well. Stephen A., what's your reaction to Steph's comments on KD and what he felt in that article?
I believe that Stephen Curry did what he normally does, which is maintain a presidential demeanor over that franchise. That's why he's the head honcho, always was, always will be. And that's one of the issues that Kevin Durant had. He looked at Stephen Curry, and he was not only envious at the stature that Stephen Curry had on the franchise, he was also envious at the understanding that he would never have the sense of security that Stephen Curry seems to exude naturally. I did a video a while ago saying that Stephen Curry is the Golden State version of Tim Duncan. He's the Golden State version of Tom Brady. Those type of people, they're born. It's very difficult for someone who's not a natural leader or someone who does not have that natural presidential aura to show that calm. I think that Kevin Durant also has issues with his upbringing versus Stephen Curry's upbringing. I'm sure that certain people in the comments will say, you're reading too much into this. I don't think so. Because whenever you leave a situation that's fruitful, it has to be a psychological issue. We know that it's not monetary because they could have paid him the most money. We know that it's not about winning because he did the most winning there that he ever did, and I believe he will ever do in his career. It still, of course, has to be shown or revealed if he's going to win as much in Brooklyn as he did in Golden State. But I think that he's going to realize that being able to pull up from 40 whenever he wants and go in between his legs 5,000 times with Kyrie Irving is not going to pay as many dividends as the system that they ran in Golden State that he seems to be so disdainful of.
Well, number one, I'm not surprised. When it comes to Steph Curry, he's class personified. And, to know Steph Curry, he gets along with almost anybody. He's a really classy dude. He's non-confrontational. He's a professional. And he's a spirited dude that definitely supports his teammate. It's not an accident that when KD, towards Achilles and had to be escorted off the court in Game 5 of the Finals against Toronto when he tried to come back, it was Steph Curry that was walking into that locker room and felt so bad.
Well, it was Curry and Iguodala. But I also think that Stephen Curry understands the imagery, or as they call it today, the optics of Kevin Durant tearing his Achilles. He knew what the overall media narrative was, that being that there was some confusion over whether or not Kevin Durant was injured or was he healthy enough to play and just quote-unquote dogging it potentially. So Stephen Curry knew that he had to put forth that show of support after it was very obvious what KD went down with.
Thompson is as real as it gets, and he's another guy that's really authentic. I think that the thing they wouldn't tell you, however, is that, and I have not spoken, in fairness to Kevin Durant, I have not spoken to him about this. We just did the boardroom, his show together, and that's coming out soon with Jay Williams moderating. Mac, you do not want to miss that.
Where he interviewed you, right?
Well, Jay Williams was the moderator, and KD and I were going at it one-on-one, talking about various issues. So that's going to be on the boardroom coming up. You don't want to miss that. But I didn't ask him about this, because they were asking me questions more so than anything else. But what I would tell you, knowing KD the way that I do, and
knowing KD the way that you do, all of a sudden y'all best friends now? Man, please.
Some of those players on that roster and some of those people in that front office. Here's the thing that everybody needs to understand about KD. KD got along with people, but KD, in terms of that family knit, that close atmosphere, he felt separate and apart from that, which he alluded to in the article. He came to a team that was ready-made, that had gotten drafted. Draymond got drafted by the franchise. Clay got drafted by the franchise. Steph Curry got drafted by the franchise. Andre
Well, he knew all that before he signed there. The real issue is that from the moment that Kevin Durant decided that he was going to go to Golden State and he signed that contract, and all of a sudden that massive tidal wave of backlash came against him, he wished that he could have weaseled his way out of signing that contract from then. But he already made the commitment, so he had to go through with it.
I had been there for years, etc., etc. So even though he was cool with a lot of guys, that family knit kind of atmosphere, he was sort of like the outside guy looking in. And even though he was a superstar, it would never be his franchise as long as Steph Curry was there. Even though he was universally recognized as the better player. Then we get into the situation with Draymond Green. Did him and Draymond Green have a bad relationship? Not from what I was told. They had bad moments. We saw that. And as somebody...
I think everyone, other than the most secure and mature person, is going to have a series of bad moments with Draymond Green. Because he's basically a hood rat chick stuck in a man's body.
That knows Draymond Green very well. Draymond Green, let me be very, very clear to you. He's an acquired taste. I love the brother. But a lot of people might not, because Draymond Green is as honest and as real as they come. He ain't gonna buy.
Right, but what does that really mean? You could be real, and you can also be real stupid. Just because you say what you're thinking at the moment does not mean that what you're saying is valid or should be considered or even put forth.
His tongue, and sometimes you might have somebody like KD who may not want to hear that. Then the key matters. KD's, and nobody talks about this, KD's relationship with Steve Kerr was not good. And I'm not saying that Steve Kerr did anything. I'm not saying that there was some fallout or anything that happened. From what I was told, KD was not feeling Steve Kerr.
There must have been something pivotal that happened there, because it's very obvious that KD did not like Steve Kerr whatsoever, as Stephen A. Smith is stating, as also Chris Little White Lie Broussard has stated in the past. It's obvious that KD and Steve Kerr, they were not on the same wavelength. Maybe KD realized that a lot of what Steve Kerr puts forth to the public is most likely an act. He does seem to be one of these super liberal Caucasians who has an opinion about every damn thing. Maybe he said something about KD behind closed doors that got back to him. Who the hell knows?
At all. And to the point where that's why you saw Bob Myers around him. That's why you see his guy, Rich Kleiman, around him.
The idiot Bob Myers, who probably got drunk at the parade for the second championship and started talking about how KD would never be Stephen Curry in the eyes of the franchise. That idiot. Same guy who shed crocodile tears after KD tore his Achilles.
You saw other players. For some reason, the relationship that Steve Kerr, one of the nicest guys you could ever meet, obviously a champion personified, knows his basketball, qualified, Hall of Fame as far as I'm sure with everything he's accomplished, you would think that a great coach like Steve Kerr has proven to be would have cultivated a better relationship with Kevin Durant. He didn't pull that off. And that had something to do with Kevin Durant and the relationship with the team as a whole as well.
I also think that Steve Kerr was trying to instruct Kevin Durant on the importance of running the offense. And KD, at his heart, at his core, is a bona fide scorer. He came to Golden State to actually learn the higher levels of understanding on how to execute a real offense. But eventually a pig always goes back to his vomit. He wants to go one-on-one all day.
Interesting about Kerr, because you saw KD in that article in the Wall Street Journal, which read like a piece in GQ. I keep thinking about, like, I know exactly how much his Nike shorts and shirt cost, and I wonder, because I read that on a printout, was there a link where you could buy it? It felt like I didn't, you know.
Could you buy it though, those pieces?
Well, I wouldn't, but in that article, KD talked about the issue with the Warriors system and how it can kind of break down in the playoffs. You're going to have to do certain things anyway.
Every system can break down in the playoffs.
Interesting that you say that you are now reporting, Stephen A., that he wasn't feeling Steve Kerr like to that level, because now some of that other stuff makes a little more sense that he was talking about.
I said that months ago right on this show, by the way. I said that months ago right on this show.
Steph Curry. I like it's interesting to me, these kind of things, when you don't even realize until you really sit down and think about it why something happens. So on some level, KD must realize this, but I don't know if it's even conscious, and I think we all understand this, but I don't know if we really articulated it this way. Think about this for a second. Why, when you boil it down, did KD want to play for the Warriors?
Because he wanted to get away from the cesspool that was the Oklahoma City Thunder. led by that nut job Russell Westbrook. He also realized that he was never going to be able to express the highest version of himself in that offense. And that's where the conundrum comes in, because KD was actually able to ascend to an even higher level in Golden State. We see it with all the proficiency numbers. But once again, he's stuck in that vortex of quote-unquote happiness as opposed to contentment. So he had to leave a great situation. That's just how he's wired.
Why? Because of Steph Curry, when you really boil it down, play for that team because it's a powerhouse team. It's a juggernaut team. They don't play like the Rockets. One guy is not monopolizing the ball, even though he shoots it a lot. But Steph Curry is a culture setter, not only in terms of the attitude, but the way he plays the game. The ball, he's the point guard, but the ball doesn't stick with him. He always makes the right basketball play, but with him, the right basketball play may be shooting from 10 feet behind the line because he can hit that shot.
Right, but let's flesh it out. Not just Steph, it's Steph in juxtaposition to Russell Westbrook.
He will willingly pass to his teammates. I mean, and yet his teammates are like, when this dude is hot, no, take that shot. He sets the right, like, he works in the system. He is the system. Kind of, I know Draymond Green's the vocal leader and everything, but really when you boil, if there's one, like, indivisible, like, one element when you boil it down, what are the Warriors? If you had to say one thing, it's Steph Curry, and he's actually the reason, whether KD knows it or not, that KD wound up in Golden State, that he wanted to play there in the first place. So when KD now is saying, I was never really a part of it, that may be true. Like, who are we to say how it feels? You know, you go to the new school and those kids have already been there for
Right, but at the end of the day, what does that really mean? He's going to have to learn to come to terms with the fact that he's in a new environment and play off of what these other people are bringing to the table and learn to screen out the bullshit. He never learned that.
You're the new kid. You may have friends, but you may feel like they already have that group. He may have genuinely felt that way. But from Steph Curry's point of view, by the way, Stephen A., he's giving you more evidence why people want to play there. Didn't take one shot. Talked about how great KD is. He's the reason.
I'm trying to come at you because I have something to tell you, and I'm really interested in hearing your answer to this, your response to this. Max, you say Steph Curry. I actually think Steve Kerr deserves a lot of credit because before Kevin Durant arrived, even though they had a system in place, it was primarily predicated on Steph and Clay. And it was something that was, installed per se by a Steve Kerr. Now, Mark Jackson established the foundation, but Steve Kerr was able to take it to another level. Kevin Durant personally told me the biggest reason he wanted to go to Golden State is because he wanted to improve his game and continue to develop his game, and he loved their system and the way he thought he could thrive in it. Here's the question for you.
Well, he did thrive in it, but he became quote-unquote unhappy.
I'm kind of thinking, I'm shocked to be saying this. If Mark Jackson had been there, would Kevin Durant have wanted to leave? Because the more I think about the Steve Kerr element of...
Well, the answer to that, of course, is no, because Mark Jackson is not a championship-level head coach. He had Steph Curry playing hero ball in that system.
Durant. The more I think Mark Jackson would have done a better job to facilitate that relationship with KD. And as a result, he might have wanted to stay in Golden State. What do you say to that?
I don't know, because I don't know how much success, if they would have the same level of success under Mark Jackson based on the offense he was running. I'll say this, I always thought the Warriors were most about Steph 1 and Dre 2. He was the pick and roll partner. He was the 5 that allowed them to play 5 out when he was shooting the ball well. He was the guy doing all the dirty work. And maybe because of that Steph-Dre dynamic, really, that's his crime partner, and the shooter, of course, the Splash Brothers. KD really was the odd man out in terms of the dynamics of the team.
Look, KD is that beautiful chick that the relationship is not going to last. Eventually something's going to implode within her, or the dynamic is just not going to be right. So you just enjoy it while it lasts.
The question about Mark Jackson's unknowable. I suspect they would not have had...
And unnecessary. That's just Stephen A. trying to throw his little cherry bomb in there.
At the same level of success under the old offense that Mark Jackson was running.
And Max, just to wrap it up, I mean, I used to be the Warriors sideline reporter. I was there for 3 of their seasons.
Yeah, that's where you made your bones, trying to flirt with Steph.
I agree with that. You know, I feel like it was not only the combination of basketball skill sets that made the Warriors work, but also a great combination of personalities that
Agreed.
meshed really well and complemented each other really well. And I hope for KD that he can reflect on his time there really positively, because without Stephen Curry deferred to take Kevin Durant in and allow him to
Well, KD's not really going to understand it in the grand scheme until after he's retired.
comfortable, much like you say D-Wade for LeBron. Stephen Curry did that for KD. You'll never hear Steph say anything negative, but that man welcomed him, that team welcomed him and bent to make him feel welcome. And what more do you want? Championships, finals MVP, legacy, lore. He got a lot out of that. It worked for
Steph
Kevin.
took himself out of the MVP conversation.
Even so selfless.
When, by the way, he was performing on an MVP level in order to do the right thing by the team. And that's why.
Well, to KD's credit, so did he. He took himself out of the MVP conversation also. I also think that's a component to why he's going to Brooklyn, to try to stack up some more individual accolades.
People want to play there. It starts with him.
Absolutely. All right, guys, we got to take a break from this conversation.
But anyway, peace.